This is breaking news that we are receiving in our newsrooms at this hour. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has stated that Israel is changing the face of West Asia through its military campaign against Iran, eliminating Iranian military leaders one after the other. He emphasized that Israel is well coordinated with the United States during this operation, which was aimed at Iran's nuclear and missile programs. Netanyahu also noted that Iranians now perceive their government as much weaker than they thought, suggesting this could lead to further consequences. He urged Iranians to rise up against their government, stating that Israel's actions could help pave the way for their freedom.
We will do what is necessary to achieve these goals, and we are well coordinated with the United States. We are changing, as I said on the first day of the war, we are changing the face of the Middle East, and this can bring radical changes in Iran itself. The Iranians understand that the regime is much weaker than they thought. They realize it, and that could lead to results.
I talk to U.S. President Donald Trump every
All right, for the fourth consecutive day, Israel and Iran have been locked in a fierce missile exchange. Now, despite calls for restraint, the war is escalating. Let's go back to my colleague, Mohammed Saleh, who is in the newsroom. Mohammed Saleh, maybe you can continue with the very latest at this hour.
You know, Eric, when you just read out that gave us the details about what the Israeli Prime Minister has said. He claims that this war is changing the face of the Middle East. That's probably true. You know, but this also appears clearly to be a rerun of what the Americans did way back in 2003. Remember, when the Americans unilaterally attacked Iraq on the premise that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. You know, if you look at exactly that very script is trying to be attempted to be played out by the Israelis on Iran, a much bigger power, while the Israelis themselves are a much smaller power than the Americans. Here, the Israelis started off by saying that they are attacking Iran's nuclear facilities in order to try and put the Iranian nuclear program out of gear. And now they're also talking about, you know, assassinating the supreme leader of Iran, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei. This is clearly about an attempt at changing the government, about toppling the government. But it remains to be seen as to how successful the Israelis are at this moment, because remember, this is quite clearly a war of attrition. This is the fourth day and the fifth night of these attacks. The attacks started with Operation Rising Lion. The Israelis are banking on the fact that the Americans will jump on their bandwagon and they'll get involved in this war. It hasn't happened so far. The Israelis will get very worried if the Americans don't completely join them in this war, as Benjamin Netanyahu is calculating that they would. Because for now, though, it is the Israelis versus the Iranians, although the Americans are helping the Israelis out in trying to shoot down some of these ballistic missiles. But these ballistic missiles have proven to be fairly effective in wreaking quite a bit of damage on cities such as Tel Aviv, Haifa and Jerusalem.
Well, Mohammed Saleh, the interesting part is that the Israeli Prime Minister did indicate that the United States is coordinating with Israel during their retaliation towards Iran. But there's also a very interesting statement that he made, that he said eliminating Khamenei will end the conflict.
You know, this is what the Israeli Prime Minister says. But the fact is the Iranians have a successor to Khamenei who's ready and will take over Khamenei's place in case he's assassinated. Because remember, when the Iranian president, you know, Ibrahim Raisi, died very mysteriously in a chopper crash, another individual stepped up, Masoud Pezeshkian, and he took charge. So for the Israelis to presume, the Israeli Prime Minister to presume that if Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, through the actions that the Israelis are taking, is taken out or is assassinated, that there would be a void in the leadership. There's not going to be a void in the leadership because the succession is fairly clear. There are a number of candidates who are in the fray, and Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's successor will be chosen. To what extent will it derail the ability of the top leadership of Iran is difficult to predict. Remember, the Israelis started off this campaign in a very dramatic decapitation attack. They completely took off the top leadership of the Iranian military. A lot of people expected that Iran has suffered probably what Hezbollah suffered when Hezbollah's top leadership was taken out by the Israelis. But that hasn't happened in this war so far, because the Iranians have been able to put up a fairly credible response to the Israeli attacks.
My colleague there, Mohammed Saleh, good talk. We'll have to leave it there. Thanks, Saleh.